Railgun is a on-chain privacy solution, right? That uses some encryption, zk snarks, and cryptocurrency users can take advantage of this to interact with dApps, like decentralized exchanges and things like this, in an anonymous fashion. Railgun itself is entirely smart contract based. So, like the privacy core logic and the zk snark proving system is deployed like directly onto the L1s and L2s that exist already.
The DeFi and NFT space on Ethereum and other chains like that has really kind of blown up in recent years. Unfortunately, one big drawback of all that is the almost non-existent privacy. You got one address, everything you do, all the money you send, all the money you trade for things, all your NFTs are all right there, and anyone can just sort of put that in and see it. So with this giant privacy problem in Ethereum, what can you do about it? Well, thankfully, the folks over at Railgun have devised one such kind of solution with a smart contract functionality you can kind of plug on top and essentially get next level privacy for almost anything you do on chain for Ethereum, Polygon, and a few other things. So I had the fantastic pleasure of speaking with Alan Scott of Railgun, and we went in depth into this new approach of providing privacy to one of the biggest crypto ecosystems out there. Hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure of speaking with the one and only Alan Scott, at least the one that I think matters. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going really good. Can't complain.
Yeah. So would you mind really quick introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, why do people care about you?
Yeah. So I am one of the co-founders of the Railgun Privacy Project. I, primarily have been dubbed by like DAO members as like the janitor of the DAO. So primarily just spend my time cleaning up things all around the protocol. Definitely. Yeah, definitely a bit of a nobody, I guess. In that perspective, I don't develop code or anything like that, but certainly very staunch advocate of privacy. And yeah, I got my start in crypto in, I guess, in about 2017. Primarily started out as a degen trader and quit my day job at the beginning of 21 to join the team of people who are like, I guess we could call core contributors to the project. And yeah, I've been doing this ever since.
Yeah, fantastic. So would you mind really quick breaking down what exactly Railgun is? It's not its own cryptocurrency, and it's not like an L2. It's a smart contract mostly on Ethereum, but also on a few other chains. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I guess like if I had to like break it down like really succinctly, right? Railgun is a on-chain privacy solution, right? That uses some encryption, zk snarks, and cryptocurrency users can take advantage of this to interact with dApps, like decentralized exchanges and things like this, in an anonymous fashion on, like you touched base on, Ethereum, BSC, Polygon, and I think it's soon to be on Arbitrum as well. And Railgun itself is entirely smart contract based. So like the privacy core logic and the zk snark proving system is deployed like directly onto the L1s and L2s that exist already. So in that way, it's decidedly like not its own like L2 or have like its own validator network or anything like that. And so if you're not like really into like technology and like zero knowledge and this kind of thing, fundamentally what it is a substrate that allows you to have an incognito mode in what would otherwise be fully fully public cryptocurrency chains like Ethereum.
Yeah, and so this is where it kind of gets the weeds kind of start getting in, right? And because a lot of people have like even in the crypto world, have very kind of weird notions of what privacy is, or what is a privacy coin, or what isn't. Is it most people think it's a privacy coin, or it's like a mixer / tumbler or something. But so what inherently is kind of the difference between a smart contract that delivers privacy versus something like, say, middleware or something that's on the main chain that's just like a protocol level privacy function? Like, how does it differ having that via smart contract?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There is a lot of nuance when it comes to privacy in the crypto sphere. That is for sure. There's all sorts of different ways to obtain privacy, whether it be privacy coins like Zcash or Monero. You have things like mixers, like perhaps like CoinJoin, I think Blender, Tornado Cash. The list goes on, right? And there's a lot of nuance in between which one is which and like how they operate. And so I think like the important thing to understand about like middleware is that it would be very very centralized. Which if you are like really deep in like the cypherpunk ideals, like this wouldn't be too too great. You don't want to like trust your coins with somebody else. If you didn't learn that back in the day with something like Mt. Gox, hopefully you learned it in 2022 with all the people losing funds for everybody. Centralized middleware tends to be not so desirable. And then if you think about like extending like the Ethereum system, I think that this would be an issue probably because it's like another thing to be maintained as like the part of the core protocol, right? And the core protocol, at least for Ethereum, right, should be use case agnostic when possible, and try to avoid like really overt expert like overt, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess like complexities that perhaps would make like node implementations like really difficult, which could like threaten the security of the ecosystem. In other words, if you tried to do something like really crazy and like zero knowledge, if this would like inhibit a lot of people from running nodes, this could be risky, right? And so what Railgun does is it's effectively like incognito mode infrastructure for like wallet providers. And so it's primarily privacy infrastructure for the wallet side of things, right? So you have like wallet side privacy, you have application side privacy. And I think if you try to do privacy on like the application side, like on the DApp itself, so like in the DEX or staking contract or something like this would be a bit difficult, and you'd experience a bit of like fractured privacy, right? So like if a particular application had privacy, yeah, sure, like what you're doing in that particular application may be private, but you could still see the wallet interacting with it. And so I think that like the advantage of what Railgun is doing is that first of all, it's like chain agnostic, right? So it can be deployed on effectively like any smart contract chain that exists. And so like you can actually take and deploy this and allow users where they are currently to benefit from the privacy that it provides. And then I think too, like, arguably, I think like the wallet side privacy of things is far more important and valuable than like any other privacy that you can have, especially when it comes to DeFi.
Yeah, for sure. So when people are think about privacy on something like Ethereum, for example, the first thing people think about is like a tumbler kind of like a mixer kind of smart contract, and so people are more familiar with that sort of a setup. How is the privacy that Railgun offers different from that approach?
Yeah, so I would say that Railgun is decidedly not like Tornado Cash, right? And so I think that Tornado Cash is really one of those things where it's a one-off, get in, get out, and discard your secret note, and that's that, right? If you're I guess listening to this and you haven't like used Tornado Cash before, fundamentally how it works is you deposit funds in, you get a secret hash, you copy this secret hash, and then you can later withdraw those funds by using that secret hash and go about your business and discard this secret, right? And so like the use case for Railgun is fundamentally different. It's not designed for you to like burn your wallet and then like get rid of all the evidence, but rather give like self-adjudication to like individuals who they give their like plain text data to. Like in other words, like the goal of Railgun isn't to like strip away like third-party verifiability of action, but rather like give self sovereignty over over that. And so like you don't really have like this same like I deleted my private secret note because I don't need it anymore. I already withdrew my funds from Tornado Cash. If you did this kind of behavior using Railgun, it wouldn't really match up because it's like decidedly part of your wallet. This is effectively a secondary address, a 0zk address. And so saying things like, "Oh yeah, I deleted my old Railgun wallet and I make a new one every time I do a transaction, so I can't keep track." Like the infrastructure just isn't really decided. It's just not designed to be that way. Um, and I think very, very, you know, I think it's very easy to kind of like blend all of these kind of like privacy solutions together, right? And I think like the general public doesn't really understand like the nuanced differences in between like even things like as simple as like a smart contract mixer or like a custodian mixer or something like Railgun where it's effectively like a multi-agent smart contract type solution, right? But I guess if you've ever tried like all of them, you would like instantly know like what makes Railgun different.
Yeah, so from the user experience perspective, because it's all very like high-minded, like this is how this kind of works, this is how it
Right.
obscures. But so let's just say I have, for I guess simplicity's sake, like Polygon, right? I have a little Polygon wall. I got my one little address that every NFT I interact with, everything is just like super public to the entire world. And I just, had someone try to mug me because they looked at my address after I sent them some Polygon and they saw my insane Bored Ape collection and they want some of that. And so now I'm taking things seriously. I'm like, I need some privacy in my life. And so I
Right.
hear about Railgun. I want to use Railgun. So what do I, as the end user, now do to like get in on Railgun?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, from the end user standpoint, I would say that using Railgun is like first and foremost like really transparently familiar. There
Hmm.
isn't like any sort of end user like deep interaction with like the snark proofs and all of the different crazy cryptography and things like that that's going on. Like this is all handled like in the background by the contract suite that exists, right? There's this wallet that exists today called Railway that uses this technology. And fundamentally, what you do is you input your seed phrase into this wallet, and or you could create a new wallet if you so chose. And you can then take and deposit arbitrarily any token that you would like to into your balance, right? And this could be an NFT. If you want to store your Bored Apes in your private balance, you could do that too. But this is the first point of privacy, right? So then you have this private balance of tokens with which you can take and send tokens to people. Maybe you want to pay for pay for beers or groceries or whatever it may be, or you want to do some sort of like DEX trading or something like this. You can do this from your private balance, and no one will know that it's actually you as the end user.
Mm.
And just like a regular address, I think what's really interesting about Railgun, right, is it's all happening on chain. Like there isn't like off chain stuff that's happening, right? So everything that you're doing is still on chain. It's all just hashed up and encrypted into your into your wallet, right? And so what's really cool is you still have like this fully like auditable like transaction history that you could use to um, you know I don't know, share with your accountant or remember who you paid if you're paying invoices, this kind of thing. So if they're like you, for example, and they pay all their bills by way of crypto, they could go back through the transaction log and say, hey, I did this particular transaction on this date to pay for this particular thing and still have that like personal auditability of their transactions.
Yeah, so I get like a railway a wallet, and then I assume I get a new address for that, right? Just and does the address look
Hmm.
any different from like a standard ETH or Polygon address?
Yeah. So a standard ETH address would be like 0x yada yada yada
Hmm.
yada, right? And then a 0zk address, well, is exactly that. It's 0zk yada yada yada, indistinguishable string of letters and numbers.
Yeah, and so anyone can just send to that. But if they put that address into Etherscan, it just says like, just doesn't tell them what's going on in there.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So fundamentally, all it is a so your 0zk address is a hash of a bunch of really boring stuff. I don't really particularly feel like we should get in the weeds of, but suffice it to say, what it allows people to do is, like you said, arbitrarily deposit into your balance in the Railgun smart contract, right? And fundamentally what it does is it creates a UTXO for you to then like transact with those tokens. So let's say you deposit 100 DAI, you then have your 100 DAI that you can transact with, and you can generate a Stark proof that you have the right to spend those UTXOs.
Yeah, so you do that. You get your special wallet, you move all your apes and stuff into this one address, and then now everyone can I guess they can verify that the transaction went okay, but they don't really see what's in it. And so now you have this wallet. So first off, if you import this seed phrase from, a railway wallet into something like MetaMask, and then you start sending stuff around from there, do you immediately exit, I guess, the shielded balance or something? Like, do you have to keep on using a wallet that explicitly supports this contract to keep doing it? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so if you were to take that seed phrase and migrate it to a different wallet, they would have to support the Railgun infrastructure and like that architecture of 0zk addresses in order to continue using it. So currently, to that point, like that would probably be one of the limitations of where the Railgun tech is today, in so much that the Railway wallet is one of the only very user-friendly front ends that exist for using Railgun. Now there is like an SDK, so if you're like a really like advanced like power user, you won't need a front end. You can just use the SDK, call the contracts, and do stuff. But that's not like the average everyday user use case. So yeah,
yeah. And so basically, all the actions you take when you're using a supported wallet kind of operate in this dark world, so to speak, the Railgun world. And then if you wanted to do something like, say, buy an NFT from OpenSea or something. So first off, that's theoretically possible, I'm sure. Is there something that lets it happen? Is there a wallet that supports that today? Like you connect with it kind of thing?
Yeah, so the way that Railgun handles DeFi interactions is by way of what are known as relay adapt contracts. And so from a high level, what it's doing is it's basically like a liaison smart contract that allows, so like in that example, OpenSea, right? It allows OpenSea to very easily interface with a private balance in Railgun. So let's say you spend 1 ETH on some NFT on OpenSea.
One of those Trump ones.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Those are, those are very interesting. I could go down a rabbit hole there. Yeah, they're a bit odd, but I love it. Nevertheless, right, you buy one of these NFTs, right? What's happening, if you look at it on like a blockchain explorer, you'll see that the Railgun contract interacted with OpenSea, and some arbitrary, you have no way of identifying it, Railgun user has bought this NFT and then put it into their private balance. But in terms of like who did it, you won't know. Basically, so you can think of it like there's a big black hole. Money has come out of it to purchase this NFT, and then the NFT has gone into the black hole. And this is all supported by the Adapt Relay smart contract and like the SDK associated with the private balances.
So basically, by doing that, you don't really need to worry about the inability to transact, kind of liaise with different actors. And so, like, for example, say you had like you wanted to interact with, say, Thorchain. You wanted to swap tokens to and from Ethereum, and you wanted to, like, see if you wanted to swap, say, Bitcoin for ETH, as long as the outgoing ETH address was the, Railgun address, then you'd swap Bitcoin, and it would just go into the void as far as onlookers are concerned.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is like back to like that nuance that you were talking about. And this is kind of like one of the things that makes Railgun really unique, right? Is that it is just another smart contract within the like the ecosystem. And like
Hmm.
developers are, and a lot of at least like really deep crypto enthusiasts are very comfortable with dealing with smart contract logic. And so basically what that means is since that Railgun is a just another smart contract, they can arbitrarily call the smart contract and interact with it in a way that they're very used to interacting with smart contracts. So instead of like, so for example, like, some solutions use like bridging and L2s and like various roll up mechanisms that are at least more esoteric than, say another smart contract and thus a little bit more difficult to integrate. But the beauty of Railgun is that it is just another smart contract, right? And so like doing things like calling calling the Railgun contract to a bridge to perform swaps through, something like Ren or, like you said, Thorchain or some other like arbitrary bridging mechanism. Or if you wanted to do something like stake your tokens or yield farm or buy NFTs or hell, get really complicated and do like a flash loan or something like this. It's basically the same thing as calling any other smart contract.
Yeah. So it's pretty much every single thing you can do with these, in theory at least, these kinds of chains transparently, you can kind of do privately. And then
Mm.
enough information gets transmitted to say, like, for example, you want your Twitter NFT profile picture, but it's in your Railway wallet. You should be able to connect that and just say, this is my NFT, sign it. And then they don't actually know who you are, how much you have. They just know that to put the NFT up there and such.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of really interesting like NFT type things, and the DAO actually just voted to support NFTs, so ERC 721 and 1155, and like profile pictures are always really great. Like those are
Mm-hmm.
always like the first thing that people think about. But even something like providing liquidity to Uniswap V3 to get yield or something like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are emitted an ERC 721 to prove your ownership of this. I think what would be really neat, and kind of looking at some of the things that I've heard people are building using Railgun and the infrastructure there. I've seen and heard of people building different things to control and like prove right to interact. So like being able to control a safe or like a multi-sig privately, like this kind of thing by using an NFT access card and things like this. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's really, it kind of like drives back to like why I think Railgun's cool anyway, is that it has like this really interesting like flexibility on the backside, and it's like a really robust like infrastructure that like anybody can interact with. But from an end user perspective, it just feels like any other wallet that you would be using.
Yeah. So let's dive into like some of the like restrictions and stuff.
Mm.
Other than Service X Wallet Y has not been updated to support this kind of stuff. Other than just that side of things, are there any restrictions or limitations on like kind of what can you do?
Mm. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest limitations for Railgun currently is the especially on Ethereum, is the gas prohibitive nature of doing on-chain zero knowledge. Using Railgun at this exact moment is it's pretty reasonably expensive. It costs about 1 million gas to do a Railgun transaction. So I don't know when the end user or somebody listening to
Mm-hmm.
this might be watching, but as of this recording, that would be maybe something like 20 to like $40 depending on where gas is at any given moment, right?
And
And
so
so
to
this is
real
a
clarify, that's obviously if you want to send it around, but is that also if someone wants to send to your address? Like if someone has transparent ETH and they want to send it to your OX0ZK or whatever address,
right,
they'd also have to
exactly.
pay that.
Yeah, exactly right. So like the shielding computation is really quite expensive, and it actually points to there's one exact part of it that's actually quite expensive, and that's like the Poseidon hash function that Railgun
Mm-hmm.
is using. This actually accounts for man, probably something like 60 to 80% of a Railgun transaction's gas cost.
Mm,
And so, like, in terms of like the limitations, I think that's probably one of the biggest ones is the gas cost, right?
yeah.
Um, but I think there's actually an EIP that's coming out. I should say, was created back in November. It's in draft phase right now. It's EIP 5988. And
Hmm.
this actually would this EIP proposes Poseidon precompiles. In
Hmm.
other words, like you can actually take and precompile this computation on the client side and then submit that to the blockchain. And this would actually take and benefit anyone who's using Poseidon hash functions. So like Filecoin, Dust Network, Sovereign, I think is using it, Loopring, Hermes. Um, in fact, I think even Starkware, because I think Eli was one of the guys who authored it. Anyway, being able to precompile this would save all of that gas cost, right? And so I think in the future, like that barrier for entry, at least on like mainnet, will reduce pretty dramatically. But on places like Polygon or BSC or Arbitrum, where gas costs aren't really expensive, you're spending pennies instead of dollars. So definitely
Yeah.
not that high of a barrier for entry if you're using it on those networks. And so it's
Yeah.
kind
So
of one of
like,
those like
how much
trade
is
offs.
it? How much is it on Polygon these days? I mean, every time I've used Polygon, it's been like fractions of a cent of fees. It's been pretty low.
Yeah, you're probably talking like 5 to 7 cents to do a Railgun transaction, something
So
like that.
not nothing, but definitely not something you can't really afford if you're just sending money around.
Exactly right. Yeah. So like, would I spend 5 cents to gain privacy on $100 transaction? Um, well, I mean, if you look at the Railgun contract and like the deposits and interactions with smart contracts and things like that, people would say yes. There's been something like 6,000 ERC20 transactions with the Railgun contract on Polygon alone, right?
Hmm.
So definitely people using it in the last couple of months. Same thing on ETH. And so I think you're kind of seeing like the same like bifurcation out of mainnet and like these Ethereum alternatives where it's the whales will play where the whales will play, and I guess plebeians like me are just relegated to Polygon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously that's where people like Z People's chain. Uh, so it seems like the inherent, like compared to all the different privacy systems out there, it seems like doing it via smart contract is kind of like the most, I guess, efficient, like as far as it's just the most like adaptable, easy kind of way. You can just kind of plug it into anything. The
Mm.
trade-off inherent in that though is because of all the computation, it might end up being a little more expensive than just say like sending a Monero transaction or just shielding a Zcash transaction or something like that. It's
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
more.
Yeah, and I think it's all about like trade-offs. I don't think that the private just like any like ecosystem or like economy, if you will, I don't believe it to be like zero sum, right? I
Hmm.
don't think that there'll be like one privacy solution to rule them all, right?
Hmm.
I don't think that has ever been the case and if it has, it never really lives to be very very long. And so I think that with time, we'll kind of see like, there'll be like the various use cases for things like Railgun. I think like the transfer of wealth by using like, Zcash or something like this or Monero, being able to transfer tokens, value in between people. These are certainly tried and true ways to do that without the gas cost. But in terms of like doing DeFi interactions, this is where like Monero and Zcash don't really exist. So like I can't perform, at least in the current state of things, like I can't
Hmm.
perform yield farming with Monero, or at least with the network directly, and nor can I do that with Zcash with the network directly, right? Um, and so I think that's where things like Railgun come in, right? Where you can actually, have that continuation of privacy into the DeFi ecosystem and, do those kind of things in a private fashion without being, tracked, having your alpha leak or something like this.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Is there any kind of a time difference? So this is usually not something that anyone really cares about who doesn't like use crypto at like a point of sale environment, which is like pretty much like me and five other guys. But like for example, the time it takes before a transaction shows up and is confirmed in seconds is extremely important. Does
Yes.
it? And some things like, for example, generating like a shielded transaction on Zcash takes a little bit longer. Not much, but like a little bit longer. And you notice that. Is there some extra time that kind of gets tacked on to run through the Railgun contract and then send a private transaction?
Yeah, great question, actually. So in terms of, so if you're using Railgun on a PC, the transaction is indeed instantaneous. I would say there is no discernible difference in between doing a Railgun transaction and doing a public transaction. However, it also works on the mobile devices of the
Mm-hmm.
world as well. The Railway app exists on Android and iPhone as well. Generating a snark proof on a cell phone is computationally intensive. And so, like, generating that initial snark proof probably takes something like, maybe 10, 15 seconds. And so, that's maybe something to consider if you're like, generating private transactions on the fly.
Yeah. I mean, 15 seconds, it's not that bad. The old lady writing her check behind me in line could wait. That's not,
Yeah.
it's not like waiting 10, 20 minutes for confirmation. That's something,
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, exactly. So like Railgun is like deployed directly onto like the directly onto the to the chain. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
like these transactions have like single block finalities. So whenever you take and submit it to the blockchain, it happens instantaneously. Like there is no roll up
Mm-hmm.
delay or something like this, right? And so if you had or maybe a more performant phone than I do, I just got like an old Pixel. It could happen even faster. I don't know.
Yeah. And so right now well, first off, a little bit of a side question or note. So if Railgun's a smart contract, anyone can kind of interact with it. But then there's, a company and a team and all that kind of stuff behind it. There's got to be some sort of a revenue model out of that stuff. So when people interact with the smart contract, is there some kind of like revenue that goes to Railgun, or like who gets to pay you guys to do the amazing work that you actually do?
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of Railgun, there isn't like a company.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't like a company that exists or some sort of like centralized authority that can like control Railgun or who can use
Mm-hmm.
it or anything like that. So I guess that's kind of like the first point. But the
Mm-hmm.
the second point to what you're asking, there is a 25 basis point fee associated with the Railgun smart contract. So it's 0.25% that goes off into a treasury associated with the smart contract. Now, this treasury is controlled by DAO proxy. There isn't like an individual or a multi-sig or something like this that controls it. It's up to the like DAO voters who control the Railgun proxy and things like this, who decide what to do with this funds. So it can be something like paying rewards to people who are staking Rail. It can be pay out grants to people who want to do things on behalf of the protocol. Whether this be like development, research, marketing, this kind of thing.
Mm.
And so it's up to, I guess the arbiters of the system, if you will, which are the people who are staking the token, to decide like how those funds are used.
Interesting. So it's like a DAO by fee kind of thing.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I guess that's fair to say.
Yeah, I guess it's a pretty ingenious sort of way of doing. I don't know if it's super unique, but I'm not too familiar in the greater modern DAO space. Old school DAOs, yes, but no, not so much the new stuff. But yeah, it seems like an
Mm.
interesting way of like building a permissionless product without having to build like a company structure necessarily. You just get to, I guess someone gets some start, you do token sale or get some startup capital to just build it, and once it's out, then just by running it, everyone involved can kind of decide where that goes. It's an interesting model. Now, as far as like why like use cases, I mean, I'm a big privacy advocate. I think it's great. I'd kind of like to know more where the specific demand for privacy came specifically for you guys. Like, where did it?
Mm.
Where did the? What was the kind of the motivator for the creation of demand for a solution like Railgun?
Yeah, so it's I think I think it's first very like prudent to acknowledge that privacy, at least in DeFi, has been pretty frequently deprioritized when compared to like
Hmm.
other economic pursuits, right? And
Yeah.
so, public chains like Ethereum are exactly that. They are public. And
Hmm.
so that means that like all of your on chain data is available for everyone to see, well, at least till the end of the internet, whenever that might be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think you also have to consider like the like ever improving like state of commercial like on chain analytics. So things like
Hmm.
Nansen Chainalysis, Elliptic. These guys are at least they say they can trivial in a trivial way trace transactions and how they're going. And in this kind of environment, I think that privacy demand will grow. Right, I really do
Hmm.
believe that. And I think that further, it's really important to acknowledge that privacy is like a natural, it's a very normal state for human affairs. And I do believe that it's also expected by like rational users and rational actors, especially like in finance. And so, what do I mean by that? I think that like if you were to take and negotiate a really well negotiated contract, let's say you're Toyota Corporation or something like this,
Hmm.
and you negotiate this really awesome contract with your aluminum supplier, and the last thing that you want to do is like have the Toyota wallet doxed, making a payment to their aluminum provider, and revealing that really awesome trade secret or something like this. And so, like the business to business applications, I think are like the really really good ones. You know what I mean? Like the current state of like crypto, I believe, it doesn't really allow for like DeFi to become like this, transformative like technology that everybody says it will be. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like crypto is largely succeeding because it has privacy, but the privacy it has is because no one's looking, or until recently, few people were looking. Like back
Yeah,
when I remember back before, like Bitcoin had HD wallets, for example, and I had my one Bitcoin address, and I just thought like I got privacy or something, which is the most ridiculous thing. I mean, I didn't know
yeah,
anything back then. You can forgive me; it was 2013, but like, it's pretty ridiculous to see, but no one's looking. And I mean, I dabble in NFTs. I know a lot of people that do. I dabble in DeFi. I know a lot of people that do. Almost no one is being actively snooped on in a way that has which whose consequences is filtered down to them yet. And
mm,
so I think that it's more that people think they're operating under a state of privacy, at least in their minds, as a state of privacy today.
yeah.
And at some point, they'll need things like Railgun to continue what they think is the status quo, but they don't actually realize it's actually getting privacy where they had none before.
Yeah, I think like, man, I can't remember who said it. I think it was like J.W. Verrett. I might be
Hmm.
misattributing this to him, but I love the guy anyway. But he said something along the lines of like, there's something like there's like two really big points in like a crypto user's like crypto journey that happen, pretty early on. The first one is like fully like taking and self custodying their wealth, if you will, and like that like acknowledgement of like the responsibility and like the power and the freedom associated with this, right? And then like the second big moment is when you then go to a blockchain explorer and put your address in, and then you could just see like everything that you're doing, right?
Hmm.
And I think like the pseudonymous nature of like a 0x address in the world of Ethereum is it's really cool, right? And it works well when it comes to things like very small networks. But the thing is like as it grows and like the network effect grows and like transactions actually really start to take off, and people are making payments, like I mean I've seen some of your content online. You pay for everything. That's up to you, by the way, but you pay
Yeah.
for everything in crypto. Like imagine when it gets to the point where like you actually take and like swipe your crypto account, and like Starbucks immediately knows exactly how much you have in your bank account in every transaction that you've ever done ever, and then can follow you off to Trader Joe's or wherever you shop and see how much you spend there and this kind of thing. I think that like um, I
Yeah,
think that, like this is a very dangerous state for like finance, and I
of
believe that
course.
like yeah, I believe without privacy, I don't think that this kind of like stuff will actually really take off. I mean, I think it's very easy to it's very easy to conceptualize and talk about like um, those who are like really vulnerable and marginalized, and maybe in regimes where like overt control and surveillance structures are like constantly snooping on them. That's not the case for me. I live in the U.S. We have a pretty friendly government, at least to Americans. Debatable. Maybe we'll have
Yeah,
another podcast where we put our tin. I'll put a tinfoil hat on. You put a tinfoil hat on, and we'll reveal all those.
yeah, we'll get
But
swatted.
yeah, exactly. But suffice it to say, I mean, I think like the economic importance of having privacy is really there. Information has like monetary value, and it's only in proportion to like how well you keep it private. And on a pseudonymous public ledger blockchain, that monetary value is not to the individual; it's to the people collecting, collating, and selling that data. And I don't think that should be the case. I think you should have self-sovereign right over your plain text data, and I think that includes your crypto financial transactions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been pretty enlightening. What do you think of what's the thing that's exciting to you most in Railgun's future? What are you looking forward to?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think what am I most excited for in the future? So like the last 2 years, if you like, follow the DAO and like the developments and
Hmm.
like what contributors are doing, has all really been around, building up this like infrastructure, and we're kind of seeing like the shift into like different builders around the ecosystem wanting to build in privacy into what they're doing. And so we're
Hmm.
starting to see people like engaging with the SDK. We're starting to see people exploring what it would mean to like add privacy to their applications on Ethereum, on Arbitrum, on Polygon, so on and so forth, right? And I'm really excited. I think 2023 is going to be like the year of integrations, right? I think that we're going to see a lot more people starting to take and involve privacy in what they're doing, and I think that they're going to take and they're going to they're going to tout this as a competitive advantage. So maybe they'll be like, if you're into derivatives trading or something like this, I can imagine someone integrating Railgun and saying that they have alpha protection where people can't track your trades and things like this. I could imagine payroll providers who would be able to like have like fully GDPR compliant payroll infrastructure that has like different data protection built into it, like uh, discarding of like employee data over a certain amount of times, and those kind of regulations, like actual like really cool use cases that genuinely need privacy. And I think we're starting to see some of that like in its early state now. And yeah, I look forward to the end of the year and like seeing how many people have like integrated Railgun. That's going to be what's most
Yeah.
exciting for me.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to have like a zero knowledge NFT gallery, for example, where
Mm,
you could show it off if you wanted to, or you could only show it off to certain people and be like a temporary view key or something if you wanted to do
yeah,
that. Something like that, because like what are the NFTs are one of those things that are simultaneously like they're almost anti-privacy in the way,
yeah,
not really, but they're kind of the way the collectible versions are, I should say, where people want to know how much which ones you have, or you want to display it, but you don't. Sometimes you don't want that displayed, and especially in the future, I'm sure if you have, for example, all your identifying documents and your house title and your car titles are all NFTs in your wallet, you're definitely not going to want the whole world to know about that. But it would be
yeah,
nice
exactly right.
for like a one-click KYC thing where you just give them the view key to your documents wallet or a certain view key, and then they can
Mm.
see that you have all these documents, and then you can kind of get that. And yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of yeah, so like the Railgun infrastructure has like view keys that exist today. And there's definitely some research going on around like various ZK snarks, or even not snark based, maybe even like recursive zero knowledge, to be able to prove certain things about yourself. whether it be like zkid or like proof of non-interaction, this kind of thing. Yeah, broadly speaking, in like the zero knowledge space, those are the things that I'm really excited about too, because I think that, this will further like people's comfort with using privacy, because it's very not only like deprioritized, like we talked about, it's also like demonized. And I believe that like as the tools develop for people to be comfortable using privacy solutions, and also like feel like they can like maintain their right as a good actor, and like they probably are, um, that's what I'm actually really really excited about too. Beyond like just the DeFi interactions would also be like people building different compliance infrastructure and things like that. So like I can know that I'm interacting with someone and be comfortable with them and their balance and not know anything about them. I think this is a
Yeah.
very beautiful thing.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Well, where can people find more about you and follow you on social media, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm on Twitter. I'm not too hard to find personally myself. I'm tsu_karata. I'm frequently retweeted by whoever's running the Railgun account. But yeah, you can follow Railgun Project. We're all in the Telegram Church of Railgun, which is the public Telegram. It's always really great fun in there. A bit sacrilegious, but all in good fun.
Well, Telegram
Yeah,
definitely needs a Railgun integration, so they can
God
kind
bless
of
them. Yeah, they do.
encrypt all their messages, even though they
Here,
don't
here.
natively support it.
I agree, man. Yeah, step one would be end-to-end encryption for those guys, but I digress. So you can catch us on Telegram, you can catch us on Twitter, we're on Discord. I'm probably at a crypto conference near you. So yeah, however you want to get in touch, come say hey.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and yeah, thanks for being on, and yeah, I'll see you guys later.